Okay, hold on. Give me a second. I gotta reset this fucking recording route. Recording locally. Always fun. Always fun. Give me 1 second here while I take care of this bullshit. Hold on. Oh, it's because I need to plug this shit in now. God damn it. Plugging it in. Plugging it in. What's going on? What's going on, people? How we doing? How we doing? Give me 1 second. I gotta fucking fix this thing. Stupid OBS. Stupid OBS. No? It's not gonna work. You're not gonna let me? You're not gonna let me record? I need to. Why isn't it letting me switch that shit? I hate this. I hate this. Oh, it's cause I'm fucking live, that's why. It's cause I'm live. Hold on. I'll be right back. Stay here. Okay. Hold up. Alright, we back. We back. It's the same. It's the same. Are we good? How's the levels? How's the levels? How we feeling? We got it. We got it. We got it. Fucking technology over here. Got a new webcam, new corner of the room, new shadow next to me. Still got fucking SpongeBob hanging next to me. Listening to that, listening to them tracks you send. We getting right back to it. We are getting right back to it once again on the Discord. You know, I'm actually not gonna get right back to it. We're gonna read the bars that I posted. We're gonna read them bars. We're gonna read all of the nice things that will be inspiring to you, hopefully. I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up on the fucking screen. Hold on. I'll pull it up on the B Sky. Actually, no, it's on the Patreon. I'll just read it. I'll just read it. Everyone should hear the words that I'm going to say as just a reminder. All right? Just to get us started on why this shit's important. If you ever get down on yourself for not getting streams or sales on Bandcamps, I understand. Sorry. Let me fuck that. I fucked that up. Jesus. I fucked up my own bars. If you ever get down on yourself for not getting streams or sales on Bandcamp, understand that it only takes one listener to change someone's life forever. I keep going through obscure MP3s I collected in 2006 from random blogs and forums and trying to look for where these artists are now and they have no digital footprint whatsoever. And it pains me that younger people now might not know of them, but I know of them and what they did for me on my musical journey. The effect these obscure artists have on us fucking matters. Whether an algorithmically curated playlist picks up on these artists is so distant from any actual importance. If you want people to know about the music that changed your life, tell the people in your life about this music. Sure, I'd love to be able to pay all of my bills off of millions of streams a month, but I'm not a content creator. I'm a music teacher. Well, technically, I'm a content creator. I'm streaming to you right now, but I'm a fucking music teacher. We've drank the Kool-Aid telling us that metrics matter for the sake of longevity, and honestly, I'm not seeing it. We need to be okay with small scenes again. Your gut instinct to playing to a room of less than 10 people shouldn't be, man, I thought I was going to sell this place out. It should be, the people in this room are my new friends, and I look forward to getting to know them. But it requires you to take the first step, to talk to them afterwards. There is a person in a high-rise office making 6 figures with a job that affects no one in any significant way compared to that one song that makes you weep on command for completely illogical reasons. And these people know that they will never be able to create something of this type of meaning. If you can make the time every so often towards creating work of this impact for even just one person, regardless of your medium, you are doing more with your life than that person in the high rise. You are taking the risk of being publicly vulnerable, and you're incredibly brave to do so. Keep being brave, keep talking to people, keep making new friends. Just had those words earlier today that I think a lot of musicians need to hear. And I hope it was of some value hearing it yourself. Which makes all this shit so much more important. And again, kudos to all of you for being a part of this, for submitting your work and seeking third parties to discuss it with in an unironically safe space. This is what it's all about, man. About being each other's third party, holding each other to account, showing that there are many ways to skin a cat, as they say. Horrible analogy. Or is it shave a cat? I don't know. There are many ways to do things, and we should be able to provide each other with those suggestions in a constructive and respectful manner. And that's what we're doing here. I appreciate y'all being a part of this and having been a part of this, those that have been here on the Patreon side of things for however many years now. That's what the shit's all about. So I appreciate y'all being here, and I just wanted to start out with that, with some words and some appreciation for you. So now let's get to some of the interesting stuff. Let's get to some music. Shall we? We got a track without an artist name, unless they want to say it in the chat with us live here. I believe this is who's up first. Here's another track. Couldn't figure out how to develop the first half, so it just ends up getting swallowed by noise, which I do far too frequently, and I'm trying to move away from. This is Alien Cut by artist unknown. Feel free to credit yourself in the chat, or I will do so afterwards when we take Discord off of streamer mode and it de-anonymizes your name. All right, Alien Cut. Let's go. There we go. Here we go. Let's get it going. Let's get it going there. Give them some daps. Whoever they are. Whatever the project is called. We'll name it later. I'm not taking it off of the streamer mode in Discord right now. I thought this was quite lovely. I thought that it did feel like a developed first half. It actually felt like a pretty cohesive arc from... It's a simple arc, but cohesive in that we're building up in a very effective theme in the first half, and we're building it up to something tonal and loud, maybe even the first 2/3 of it. Straight line upwards, and then it disintegrates gradually in the last minute and a half or so, but not in any sort of like, oh, we've abandoned our theme. It feels like it at its most climactic, rather than, I don't know, what do you imagine this developing into further instrumentally, when I think we've pretty solidly defined what our instrumentation is here. You know, the usage of heavily affected guitars, perhaps synthesizers in there, but primarily the various timbres of the affected guitar. I mean, that is our takeaway. That is our main sort of bread and butter of this. I mean, would you want there to be even more dramatic or even sudden sort of shift in developing? I mean, in the classic post-rock standard, having something build up gradually and then suddenly cut to something very quiet and then boom, exploding into a true finale, a true epic finale, is another tried and true trope. You heard it here first, of the post-rock and instrumental guitar contemporary sort of world here. But the question is just like, how are when you say develop, do you mean developing compositionally, or do you mean more in arrangement? Because there's plenty of things we could do to build an arrangement into other sections of instrumentation. Breath play mentioning, a bass part or some other low end would be a good shift. Sure, I mean, yes, there certainly, being that it is very clearly guitar music, it tends to gravitate, or at least hover around the mid range and the highs, the twang and the real meat of the instrument in the mids and mid lows. But yeah, there could definitely be a dramatic shift in frequency if you were to expand beyond this instrumentation. But the thing is that I don't know, and this goes for everybody, is to think about when they're posting here too, and talking in the chat live if you're here with us, of just intention behind the work, trying to look backwards, like, what is the vision that we have at the end of the tunnel here? What is the vision for this piece at its most idealized, and what are the pieces that it takes to get there? What's the instrumentation? What's the trajectory of the piece, right? Because to me, based on not knowing much of your kind of overarching goals here beyond, like you had said, like piece getting swallowed by noise, and you trying to you do too frequently and are trying to slowly veer away from the habit of doing that. But this didn't even get swallowed by noise. There was just a dramatic build in dynamics and more crunch and saturated textures, distorted textures around that 3-minute mark or so, and then but it didn't like rush to get there. It felt like a very gradual shift, and then the disintegration at that peak also very gradual. So to me, it's patient, which I enjoy. For a 5-minute piece, it actually manages to maintain a sort of slow and steady sort of rate of development here. But again, like, the question is not where it's at now, but where do you want it to be? And if there were to be other things you could include to get there. I mean, yes, still going off what Breathplay said, like, a low end would be the final piece of the puzzle if you wanted to at least like cover all your bases of like basic frequency bands, basic frequency categories. We don't really have that bass or sub bass or bass. It's not really there right now, and obviously, like, without having to get louder, just the inclusion of a low end at a certain point. Is this you in the chat? Sad and moving. Noise plays a role of overwhelming, of emotional overwhelm, or is that a listener? I don't know if that's the artist themselves, but it certainly is meant to. I would assume meant to be evocative of some emotion, whether it be sadness or melancholy. Just a listener, no problem, no problem. I appreciate your comments. The noise absolutely plays a role in the emotional role. This is the secret third thing, y'all. At least in terms of like instrumental timbral development beyond harmony and melody. I guess it's not the third thing because rhythm is in there too, and timbre, sure. But if we're talking like real zoomed out categories here, like noises, non-tonal pieces of the puzzle, sound design, the utilization of even Foley arts, sound effects. How do we process the sound of paper into a evocative spinning stereo image of wind that is meant to just sort of build in dynamic development beyond the tonal? Noise and distortion is a great way to add to that. You're right on the money there. You're covering those bases for sure. I just, again, like, just on the low end comment, if you wanted to have something that felt full in that way and not be a strictly guitar sort of sound, that would absolutely be something to include, low end of some sort. But you know, it's really it's about following your intention here. If your intentions are that you don't want it to get swallowed up by noise, then I would veer away from stacking in distortion if that's what if you know, because that's what we're hearing here at a certain point. I wouldn't say swallowing it, but certainly involved. Hold back on the getting louder and add more in an arrangement, including different registers, such as low end. You know, fill out the sound more, and it could still disintegrate tonally. You know, that didn't seem like swallowing at all. That felt really graceful, the way that it disintegrated towards the end. That was one of the positives, if you ask me. So yeah, I would just think about what it is that end vision for the piece. We should all have that to some degree. We should all have a sketch on the napkin if we're writing something. You know, this is a story. This is giving a research paper. We need a intro, body, and conclusion outlined before we're able to write the essay. You know, or at least be mindful of that. Intentional decision making, you know, being decisive and making informed decision based on some parameters that you set for yourselves ahead of time. You're not just winging it, you know. Not that I'm saying you're winging it here, but it's true. Create a roadmap for yourself, dog, and then fill us in on what that roadmap is when you come to the chat, so we can give even more specific feedback on that. Fucking A. Thank you for sharing. We're gonna keep it going. More tracks, more tracks, more tracks. First time on Discord. Big fan of you, Parrotsky. Thank you very much. Definitely influenced getting slower and more experimental with my new project. See if I can upload a demo. Oh, here we go. Looking for feedback on the composition of this. Feel like it's a bit basic in terms of guitar shapes. Feels a bit too major, minor, cheesy. Also something to fill the mid-range, more trombone, more airy vocals. All good questions. Major, minor, cheesy. I wonder what that means. Tom Pitts, Boss Man's Holiday. Great title. Let's go. Oh yeah, Tom Pitts. Giving it up. Give it up, y'all. I don't know what the fuck you talking about, trombone enthusiast. Two major, minor, cheesy. Give me a break, cheesy. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that includes major and minor and dominant chords, dominant cadences. Lovely. Lovely. Sorry, I burped. I wrote in the chat, Badalamenti pilled, and then Breathplay immediately afterwards says, this feels very Lynchian. I feel like I should be watching a Vaseline-smeared montage of someone going about their day in a totally mundane yet inexplicably horrible way. And then I wrote Jinx right after that. Angelo Badalamenti being David Lynch's go-to composer. And even more than that, Julie Cruz, the dream pop artist that both Angelo and David produced her work, including the Twin Peaks theme song, which is you hear on the show is the instrumental version of her song, not Falling. What's it called? Someone tell me in the chat. Somebody tell me in the chat the Julie Cruz Angelo song. That's the Twin Peaks theme song, and it's not Falling. That's the other one, I think. Fuck. Anyways, it is Falling? Alright, never mind. Fuck me. Okay. Well, this is super... This is the full package with the Julie Cruz edition specifically, except we're replacing the breathy human voice with the breathy reverberant human voice with the breathy reverberant trombone in this case. Absolutely gorgeous here. And in fact, I want an entire speculative film soundtrack in this world. I want there to be not just the Vaseline smeared montage. I want there to be an arc to this, a collection of compositions that build this lore, so to speak, because you really are grounding us in it's not cliche to say Lynchian. Like, this is, like, in the most literal sense, this is Lynchian. It is surrealist while also maintaining a just like true affinity for Americana and like 1960s, 1950s sort of doo-wop Motown into early rock and roll and sort of girl group, as they call it, like the Ronettes. This American mid 20th century nostalgia in your choice of chord progressions and your decision making as far as melodic choices go. This is absolutely love me. This is absolutely lovely. Fuck me. Lovely. I would find a way to create keeping this distant, reverberant trombone prominent in the mix. I would love for there to be some contrast between close and far. This is at the end of the tunnel, walking down the street under an overpass on the sidewalk. I want there to also be a closer or slightly walking towards you, because there are certain points where you really allowed for some gnarly skronking, some more throaty and heavy in the embouchure tone and timbral shifts in your performance here on the trombone. And I would like for us to hear that more in a more intimate, less reverberant setting. And this is really just thinking about maybe a verse versus chorus distinction, maybe a doubling effect of the trombone where we have both the auxiliary reverberant send as well as a dry, more present and up close, because this is your lead instrument, and even though you're not singing literal lyrics, it's a very lyrical lead instrument. And I feel like some of that lyricism, some of that emotional delivery has to come from a more close perspective and approximate to my ears, to the center of the room in the stereo image, and not just washed in the back. I think that we need some contrast there between having full distance and not necessarily full up front, because even if you can, compare this to the Julie Cruz, there's plenty of closeness and intimacy in her voice, but there still is the space. There still is the reverberance. It's just a tasteful mix of the two, playing a tricky game between your dry channel strip and your wet auxiliary sends. That's what I suggest, just from a mix perspective. And it doesn't need to be another recording. It can be a duplicate. It could be a double. Absolutely. Other ideas, seeing here, adding organ to give it the full Angelo Badalamenti effect. And not just any organ, a DX7 organ, a 80s digital organ. I want, if we're to include other aspects of this, I would lay into the surreal schlock that might come about with some of these more digitized sounds. I think that is just setting the mood even further and, solidifying the Lynchian aspect of this. The DX7 is a beautiful revolutionary tool. It changed the trajectory of music technology in everything from electroacoustic weird shit all the way through the entirety of the pop vocabulary of instrumentation in the 80s and 90s. And Angelo Badalamenti, no exception. No exception to the usage of, even for creating more traditional sounds, such as an organ, which I'm sure there are plenty of other options he could have used. You will hear often the use cases of the DX7. A revolutionary machine. If you were to do something, if you were to want to add more keys, more synthesis involved, I would consider not going for fancy, big Hammond sound, but something a little more intentionally in the box sounding. Them's my thoughts. Evie writes, it's so appropriate that it's past 1 a.m. here. Yeah. Stay awake, Evie. Stay awake. The surrealism factor of this is beautiful, but you know. John Chowning. Yes, John Chowning, the brain of the DX7. Just talking about him. Everyone go listen to John Chowning's work, Stria, if you want to hear what the prototypes of the DX7 were initially used for when he was a, more full-time, tenured electronic music academic. He even though you could use these algorithms to make the Taco Bell gong bong sound, he made these glacial walls of glassy, metallic, digital frequency modulation occurring. He's the guy that invented digital frequency modulation, digital FM synthesis, and then he held on to the patent while full-time. I don't know if it's UC Berkeley or Stanford, one of the two. And then after 10 years, he was able to go private with the patent, and he went over to Yamaha, probably the most successful, profitable patent sales in academic electronic music history. Just a little fun history trivia for it. Yeah, he encountered it. Yes, well, he discovered the ratios. He discovered the equation that would ultimately lead towards the various algorithms of frequency modulation synthesis that would become the presets on the DX7. But anyways, check it out. Fuck around with some organ. Fuck around with even more surreal 80s inspired 80s takes on 1950s doo-wop world that you've created here. Very much enjoying this surrealism, this Lynchian surrealism from you. Okay, it was Stanford. There you go. Yes. Love me some Chowning. Classic case of just like, I got tenure, I'm going to be researching all this shit. Compare that to Miller Puckett, the guy who invented Max MSP. And then when Max MSP decided to become a for-profit company, he said, fuck it, I'm making pure data and going to maintain my copyleft principles and maintain an open source free software, which I respect him for. But easy to give your work away like that when you got tenure at more than one university. I believe he's at UC Berkeley, no? Miller Puck at UC Berkeley and MIT. I'm not exactly sure, but I met him in grad school. He was a cool-ass guy. Anyways, thank you very much. Tom Pitts, Boss Man's Holiday. Lovely, lovely work. Thank you. All right. Keeping it going. Sirtamoa. They write, I've been meandering on this track a while and think there's a sort of two songs going on here, trying to figure out if it's possible to synthesize it so it makes more cohesive sense. Arrangement is still very much a work in progress. The second half needs a lot more time to breathe. It's still in progress, so I quickly drafted up an outro rather than having it just end. Interesting. That's tough. That's a tough choice to make. Arrangement is also definitely a weak point for me. I feel like I end up doing very static 8-bar changes, building up and up into the final 8-bar loop I started with. Okay, so good to think about. Let's get into Sirtamoa, Messy Sweaty Mess. Alrighty then. Give it up for Sirta Moa. I'm saying it with a little accent. I don't know if that's correct or not. Excellent work. Excellent work, you know? I think that this is the start of something here. I don't think there's anything wrong with creating the sort of stacking of loops. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that when we're making house music, when we're making four to the floor dance music. I think that's okay. I think the question is now is getting it more into arrangement and even more nittier, grittier details, such as the BPM itself being seemingly standard 120 here. Maybe a little bit faster, and I know club people will Neanderthal, yes, we're gonna get into this. The club people tend to assign subgenre categories based oftentimes on BPM ranges and things like that, but I'm imagining more of a 140, maybe a little bit slower. I don't know. To me, I would feel that much more engaged in the counterpoint occurring between the more melodic parts and the bass line and rhythm section, with just a little bit more push in the BPM. I feel like even though we were dragging slightly. It feels like it wasn't doing itself justice into 120 range, and that we can go at least to 130. But to allow for a bit more energy, just being that this is dance music, you know? This is dance music that's meant to have people moving on the floor. We want DJs to be spinning this sort of stuff, right? And with that, if we were to be playing this at the beginning of the night, sure. But I'm not trying to think that way in a context of where of a set list this is. I would like to imagine this with slightly more energy in the middle of the night, rather than of a more down-tempo kind of stage that it's at right now. To me, we'd be listening to a slightly different one. If it was 10, 12, 15 BPM faster, if you asked me. But I don't think that thinking about this in a more straightforward, formulaic way of stacking loops is a bad thing. This is the world that we inhabit in club music is meant to be repetitive, and it's perfectly fine. I think there just needs to be the occasional drop, the occasional filter sweep, the occasional fill, treating it like a drummer. You're not doing a drum fill every single bar, you know? To create a marker in the last 4 clicks of a 32 bar section or a 16 bar section to indicate, okay, now here is our door opening. To once it's open on the other side, there will be another loop that we've added to this. It could even be a riser effect. You know, this is pretty standard stuff here. But don't think that because we're creating something repetitive and formulaic that's a fault here. If you're trying to make this type of music, play by these rules. That's okay. If you're imagining more time to breathe, you're saying that here for the second half into outro, you know? I mean, like, there are plenty of things you could do when removing the kick drum and creating more auxiliary percussive ways of maintaining pulse and maintaining meter without necessarily just being like, bah, the entire time. This could be a taking out the kick for an entire 32 bar section and dealing with just more interesting hi-hat patterns, adding delay, adding rhythmic delay, specifically to things like the hi-hat that suddenly, you know, we're entering a dub techno region. in which like this becomes a new case study of listening to all the other tonal elements, with the one new thing being an additional rhythmic delay, like triplet delay or something on the hi-hat. Something as simple as that, and then bringing in the kick, then concluding in a big place with everything returning at the very end, you know, for a refrain. This is simple. These are simple decisions that aren't reinventing the wheel in any way. But if it's simple, intentional, it can be effective. And when we're making this type of music, it's just about it doesn't need to be overthought in order for it to be great, because I think this greatness comes from its effectiveness, especially on the dance floor. You know, like we could get as analytical with this as we want in a vacuum on a YouTube live stream group critique seminar, a group critique clinic, or whatever we want to call this. But ultimately, we have to think about where this is going to go. The ideal place for this to go is to be spun. And in that case, you know, rather than like a DJ bringing up the BPM, I mean, they're absolutely welcome to. I'm just trying to think about this in the context in which like its final resting place should be on a dance floor, engaging people, you know? And so rather than overthinking it from like, well, you know, music should have more changes and things like that, it's like, well, what music? Contextually, you know? I think this type of music doesn't really need that many changes in order for it to be effective. It just needs to be deliberate in that way. So I think like I said, the occasional fill, the occasional drop of certain instruments, and then return of those instruments after a number of bars. Small things just to remind people it's like our hands are on this. We're not just autopiling it and stacking the loops, but very occasionally we're going to make a few different arrangement changes that are just going to remind you that's like, hey, I'm here, I'm engineering this, I'm manning the ship, right? The same way a DJ would do through the utilization of a filter sweep or a bass drop, you know? The more changes you put in it, the harder it is to spin in some ways. Yeah, it's true. I mean, if we're playing techno night, if we're playing house music, and I mean, in this case, we're making house music, it's very tonal, it's very melodic, you know? Oftentimes, like, trying to create a self-contained, multi-part, linear composition in that context can be difficult to mix, difficult to blend with something else. You know, the consistency is strength in this case. You know, it's all about context as to where it's going. And considering this is club music, I would say focus on the small arrangement changes just to remind folks, hey, I'm here. I'm making a few changes here and there, but this is the work, you know, and we're doing it. This is good stuff. I'm glad you submitted this. Seeing just some other comments here. I mean, you could try no drums on the second half to make it feel more like an outro. See if that feels more cohesive. Yeah, exactly. Like more experiments, taking out the kicks. What if it wasn't just all drums, leaving just a hi-hat, some other auxiliary way? You could even start to get rid of all the drums and focus on maybe adding different effects processes to the arpeggiation, you know? I wouldn't necessarily flood the bass with delay or reverb, but your pads and arpeggiations in the high end, you could absolutely make those changes, you know? And this is something more mix related too, but mixing is arrangement when dealing with stems, when dealing with audio. You are arranging, you are conducting your stems in that way. In the mixing context, also ride the levels. You know, if we were to come at this from a strictly mixed perspective, I would get this to be louder by the end. I would deliver 6 to 10 dB more across the board. I would saturate it more. I would make it sound a little less in the box in that way. Just my thoughts on that. Just a little bit more mix there. But first things first. Focus on the arrangement. Focus on the compositional sort of arc of this. And again, work with intention, dog. Intention gets you attention. And then spin this. Practice it yourself. Spin it with some other tracks that you enjoy, you know? Battle test it. Now I'm saying club music is some of the most... I think they have the most opportunities for battle testing this stuff in ways that it's not... It's standard producers, singer-songwriters, composers, musicians, recording artists and stuff, like working outside of the club genres. It's a different ball game. You are playing, for the most part, you can challenge your audience in ways that are different than a DJ who has a responsibility to, like, you could challenge them, but you have to maintain movement on the dance floor. There's so much more overhead and expectations and pressure on the DJ when it comes to this sort of stuff that, like, any band or singer-songwriter or solo electronic acts not in the club setting, they don't have to deal with that. It's a different ball game. So it's good to just sort of ground yourself in where is this going to go and make decisions based on that with intention. Thank you, Sirtaoma. Sirtamoa.com. Messy Sweaty Mess. Thank you very much. We moving. We scrolling. We moving. We grooving. Oh, we got another one. We got another anonymous one. I already know who this is. The mix is rough on this one since it was recorded through an ex-DJ. Not very much I could control other than levels, but was also supposed to be intentionally gritty. So this is a live jam? Vocals and DJ? One take? It's the kind of music I really want to make, but sometimes it's hard to get here emotionally. Also, dynamics can be hard to articulate when the mix is so blown out. We're preparing ourselves. Just looking for a vibe check. The mix is not salvageable. I love that. It's a lost cause. The mix is a lost cause. All right. Let's get it. This is a quick one. I'm bringing that shit back. DJ, run that back.
Yeah.
go. Yo, every single time from our anonymous poster here, we got something smacking us across the face. The mix not being salvageable here is a merit. That's that boy nice. Exactly. Oh, we got him in the chat here. That was actually just a 4-bar synth cut that you looped. Then I hit the record button on the deck while working the mic and the wheel. Oh, this is fucking great. This is what it's about. We got 2 decks and a microphone playing some insanity. Is this sped up after the fact, or are you just using pitch shift on your voice live? Because this is fantastic having it at this speed, including the vocal effect itself in chipmunk voice or hyperpop voice or whatever we want, you know, because it is a live jam. It is a live hip hop jam. It is a live cipher in that way, a 1-person cipher for 2 minutes. Okay, so it is resampled in the final recording to speed up the whole thing. Fantastic. This is what I also love about it, is that you're, you know, okay, so the mic is also running through a pitch pedal, but then it is sped up as well. Oh man, we're on some post shit, man. We're on some of that post shit right now. Absolutely a fan of whatever this process is. You know, it's avant-garde, man. You are experimenting here. This isn't, if you are trying to go for a straightforward hip hop project, you haven't done that. You haven't done that here. But my guess is that you are saying fuck all that and putting the experiments first. I mean, this has an almost like hyperdub meets Madlib Quasimodo era in which like you're creating characters here, and it's not just because your voice is pitched up, but there is a, once again, sort of like adding to this in a narrative way. The beat tape, if this was part of a beat tape, a sort of live, you know, one take single track sort of takeaway from this. If you were to make something like this that was 25 minutes long, that felt like a single cipher with yourself, this is again, I'm saying it, building lore. You'd be doing that here. This is a 2-minute taste of that, and compared to the other stuff that we heard, without naming who you are, I'm fascinated by the choice of experimentation and also the liveness to it. I highly recommend, from an experimental hip-hop perspective, checking out Antipop Consortium. They are sort of true OG arbiters of experimental live jammed hip-hop using live drum machines, live decks, albums recorded single take, oftentimes as a group in cypher, multi-instrumental, both spinning and doing live electronics and verses. Really wonderful. It's more like a hip-hop ensemble, like a live ensemble. Antipop Consortium reminded me quite a bit of that in a more 21st century, younger approach. They are old heads, but, you know, respectable old heads. And the other is just the label, my good friend Gang, PTP is his label, Purple Tape Pedigree. Some of the most interesting and forward-thinking hip-hop and experimental production happening these days, and they've been going well over a decade. Some of my favorites. I really am a fan of their work that Gang puts out, and I would highly recommend building up towards something that you could put out that could appeal to that, tap into that niche, because it's a strong one. You know, it's not your typical straightforward hip hop, but why be conservative? You know, It's 2025. We need to accelerate the process here of progression. We need to accelerate the changes and not to be set in one place. And you know, you're doing your own thing here. If that's a vibe check for you, I hope it was an effective one. Continue on with this. I want a 25-minute beat tape of this. Live, one take, or seemingly one take. Give me the illusion of that. Fucking A. Fucking A. It's intentionally gritty, for sure. Yeah, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first. Max Alper is an accelerationist. Yeah. Of the Fisher variety. I'm an accelerationist in the Chongqing, China. Like Chongqing. I'm not cyberpunk in a dystopian way. I'm solar punk in a utopian way. I'm fucking digging it, bro. Lovely stuff. Let's get a few more in today. Let's get a few more in. What do we got? All right. Fantastic. James Warner Duquette. I am sitting right here until I'm finished with my lunch. Oh, you're here in the chat with us? Fantastic. Feel free to let us know while we're listening as to if you're looking for any specific points of feedback that we can read off and discuss. I'm sitting right here until I'm finished with my lunch. Let's get it. Beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. I want to show the score real quick. Gonna have to share my browser on the screen here so we can see. No, that's not it. That's not it. Get rid of that. I'm trying to see this. I'm trying to have y'all see this, dog. Let me download the PDF and then we can open it up, actually. That's the best one, because this is absolutely gorgeous as a standalone piece of alternative notation. Hold on. Open up a... What am I doing? A screen capture. That's what I want to do. Which capture? Oh my god. Oh my god. Which application? Which application am I showing here? Yes. Yes. Hold on. Let's shrink it here. What a fucking mess. Getting this to fit the page. I don't even know where my mouse is. There we go. Okay. Hold on. We're looking through here. Staying right here until I'm finished with my lunch. And then a lovely tribute to the flautist. And then, with a tempo marking at the beginning, and a time signature, which you might not have picked up on, we have one stanza, and as you probably heard, minimal notation required for a piece such as this. Technically, and very correctly notated in staff, in meter, but singular per page. We should have done a live score reading, and I'm sorry I didn't set this up beforehand, but just to take it in, what we got going on here. I am a huge fan of finding alternative ways to present some traditional avenues of notation, but alternative framing for it. And I think displaying such space, emphasis on negative space here, ma. We've talked about this before. The ancient Japanese aesthetic of ma, meaning the usage of negative space versus positive space, and oftentimes the negative space taking up the majority of the space. In this case, a blank white sheet with a single stanza, and then ending it with etc. Not even a coda. Fantastic choices we got going on here. Really, really lovely stuff. Now I'm not going to just break down compositionally what is going on here for those that aren't fully can't read sheet music and stuff like that, but what we are hearing is a single baritone flute, as you had written, right? Baroque flute. Baroque, not baritone. And hearing this lovely combination of the field recordings, or rather the field performance, we could call this. The train sounds, or the one train in the background. Is this performed in a place in which we're hearing this live, or is that a post-production choice, adding the field recordings and various processes to this? As you wrote, the recording is absolutely jacked with compression. I love the mic sounds and the subway in the background passing. Interested in how people hear the form of the piece. Everything was all live, and you added the compression and the reverb. Okay, cool. So we're creating the illusion of a diegetic scene a diegetic on screen and in a particular realm, space, in which we are hearing a, let's say, a character, the flautist under a bridge, or the flautist in a long hallway with the windows open and hearing the one train just outside in Washington Heights. The one train, absolutely, like you said, gets a performance credit 100%. From a form perspective, and don't call me crazy now, I think there could be more space. I think we could have an entire page of blank measures. I want you to look up a saxophone player, Japanese guy who lives in New York now, who I interviewed him in grad school, and you can, now I put it back up on the YouTube, look up the tradition versus modernity in Japanese avant-garde music. It's this guy, Tamio Shireishi, older gentleman who has sort of created this particular zone of shrieking multiphonic steps on the alto sax. And if you go on his YouTube channel, it's a archive of all the times in which he plays on a subway platform at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and playing directly into the literal reverb tunnel of the Spring Street, Soho Spring Street C train platform, which is where he often does recordings late at night. It's this lovely contrast of, quote, silence, aka the field recordings, the environmental sound, and then filling that negative space with positive space, the utilization of the instrument itself. Now, he's playing squealing, non-tonal, dog whistle, and incredibly deafening alto sax performance. What you are playing here is a lovely tone row, tonal tone row. But part of me is wishing there was just like a moment to breathe. I felt like the tempo got too rigid for a piece like this. I know you had written tempo notes at the beginning of the score, but part of me, at least if we're maintaining that tempo, to create more irregularity between how many bars of silence there are before a dotted half note bar of activity, to not allow us to, it's a consistent ebbing and flowing, like waves, like you're inhaling and exhaling consistently at tempo. To me, when there's so much more happening because of the one train recording, because of the environmental sound. And if you wanted a studio recording of this with pure silence, you could follow right along in the tempo and in the rigidity of rest before bringing it back in. But because you made that conscious decision to include the environmental sound in this, and now I just want more of that. Now I want there to be deliberate times in which, in the form, in which is now the time to listen to what's around. I know I'm getting Pauline on you. I'm getting super Pauline Oliveros here. Continuous name drop of her. Maybe one time on Livestream I will just read her Deep Listening Composer's Handbook. Essential, crucial reading. But this is, in a piece like this, the urban soundscape is who you are in duet with in this piece. And so I think there should be a train solo. I think there should be a field recording solo. I think there should be irregularity in lengthening the moments of rest before there is a moment of activity, to create more negative space, to contrast consistent positive space that we are consistently hearing here with the dotted half note. But you know, man, New York, you're an interesting cat living uptown, making downtown music. You're all near Columbia. You should be making new complexity and spectralism. We have a dichotomy of uptown versus downtown schools of thought. This is most certainly a downtown piece, without a doubt. I'm just fucking with you. I don't really... This is 1960s dichotomies that we're discussing here and earlier. But this is most certainly fit right in the minimalist zone downtown, without a doubt. But yeah, more space, more breath. There is power in room tone. There is power in environmental sound and performing in the field performance, not field recording, you know? There is power in allowing for that to play a larger role. Yes, there was the downtown, not just the Lower East Side, Tribeca, Soho, no man's land back then, abandoned factories in Soho. Can you imagine lofts, post-industrial wasteland? We used to be a real fucking country. We used to be a real fucking country. I don't know if that was Irish or Scottish, but neither, because I'm going to talk about New York. Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff here, Mr. Duquette. Absolutely a fan. Want to hear more of this. Give me more. Loving this. All right. Let us play our last in the queue for this evening. We got some from Evie. Evie here in the chat. Perfect. This is the end of the queue for now. I expect more next week. This is a quick one. Tas fripa listina from EV. 30 seconds long. Maybe we'll listen to it more than once.
Tas fripat, stegul canales el fie, tas fripat, stegul tas fripat, stegul canales el fie, tas fripat, stegul canales el fie, tas fripat, stegul canales el fie,
Tas fripat l'estan inculcant a la seva filla que no deu treure el fem.
Tas fripat, stegul canales el fie, tas fripat, stegul canales el fie, tas fripat, stegul canales el fie, tas fripat, stegul canales el fie,
Tas fripat l'estan inculcant a la seva filla que no deu treure el fem.
This is a throwback. True musique concrète. True tape music. Talk about downtown. This is downtown Paris and downtown New York. Lovely. Made in Note, as an Ableton Note on your phone. There is a backstory, but you are too sleepy to talk about it right now. That is okay with me. I love receiving demos. I love receiving quite literal sketches made on the phone the day of while live in the chat. A great way to play us out. Develop it more. Bring us over a minute and a half next time. Because there's plenty of things that I think, plenty of places I think this could go to if you wanted to actually produce a work of linear tape music on your phone. It's absolutely possible. I think the first thing would be more distinct changes and lack of consistent looping occurring in the darn 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 darn. Irregularity is your friend. There are plenty of ways to create irregular changes in loops in Ableton Note on your phone. You thought that they was going to break into some hardstyle dancing tune. I mean, it could. Up, 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 up. This is an intro towards that. It also sounds like a intro towards a radio mix show. Saying at the end, talking about FM. Yeah. Develop this. Give us more, eh? Give us more stuff. Alright, well. It must. Started making a drum machine out of my teeth. Fantastic. Yo, put that shit in there. Give me that next time. Continue more when you are not sleepy. When you are not sleepy. Yo. Thank you all for hanging and banging. Another Group Critique Fight Club Monday night public school edition in the works. Once again, remember to sign up for the Patreon. Twice a week, we meeting here on Mondays and the Patreon Zoom School on Sundays. Feel free to sign up. Patreon.com/Parrotsky. Feel free to shoot me a tip if you don't feel like signing up for the Patreon, but you enjoy this. My Venmo's up there. And I'm making a website right now with a full student intake sort of inquiry form, but for those of y'all seeking some private instruction, y'all know this is my main job, man. Tale as old as time, the oldest book, the oldest job in the musician's handbook to be teaching, and some of you here can attest. I think I'm pretty decent at it. Shoot me an email, lamimyoung@gmail.com, if you are interested in some private study twice or 4 times a month. We can work it out. Pretty flexible schedule on that. Well, I appreciate you for hanging and banging with me. This coming weekend, I will be away until Sunday morning, afternoonish. So if you're on the Patreon, we are going to meet Sunday night at 7 p.m. So sign up at patreon.com/Parrotsky. I will keep y'all posted and remind you that we won't be meeting on the normal 3 p.m., but 7 p.m. then. And, yeah, weekend after that, for those that live anywhere in the Richmond, Virginia area, I will be speaking at a conference on music, technology, and AI dystopia at Virginia Commonwealth University Institute of Contemporary Art during their open house day on August 23rd, afternoon, 12 or 1 p.m. That afternoon on the 23rd, and then that evening we'll be performing a show at, and I will tell you which venue it is at. Going to be posting it again, or making a post about it when we get slightly closer to it. Hold on. What is the venue that I'm playing in Richmond, Virginia? The Material Room, August 23rd, 8 p.m., Richmond, Virginia. And then Sunday, August 24th, going to be playing back in Brooklyn for the Please YS series in Crown Heights. The best DIY series happening in Brooklyn right now, house show series. And feel free to DM me for address if you're in New York and want to come to that. I'll remind you again next weekend, or next week too, as we get closer to it. But anyways, hope y'all have a good evening. Stay safe, have a great week, and see you soon.